the one, the only, Ben Sion.
Welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Just Dafit, as we do tonight Maseches Gittin, Daf Pei Aleph, number 81. Hopefully we'll be finishing, a week from Monday, we'll be finishing Maseches Gittin. Pretty monumentous occasion after about 3 months. It's pretty significant. Let's start from the bottom of Pamud Beis, the 2 dots. Kosav Asofer V'Tov, and Asan Gal Isha V'Shover, Lezer Omer, Im La'alter Yatza. So the last case in the Mishnah talked about an interesting case where someone had a scribe write a get for him, and a scribe write a shover for the woman, right? The man then was going to get the get and give it to the wife, and the wife was going to get the receipt, which was going to give to the woman upon receiving the get. The scribe did the opposite. He gave the get to the woman, and he gave the shover to the man. And the man didn't realize, the man and woman didn't realize, so the man ended up giving a receipt to the woman in place of the get. And she gave him a get. And then a little while later, we realized the man's holding onto the get, and the woman's holding onto the shover. So is it a gerushin? So it's not a good gerushin. Lezer says that in certain instances, if they found out after a while, if it wasn't la'alter, we could validate the gerushin. So the Gemara says, la'alter. What's considered la'alter? According to Lezer, la'achar zman, it would be a good get. You can't invalidate the gerushin. I'm Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, kol zman sheyoshu nasukin b'osu inyan zehu la'alter. Amdu zehu la'achar zman. If they're engaged, the giving of the get, the proceedings of giving a get, they're in, I guess, the Beis Din giving the get. So once they're in the procedure, after it's done, so as long as they didn't leave, they didn't get up and leave, so then it's considered la'alter right away. But once they got up and left the courtroom, so then it's considered la'achar zman, and we say the gerushin is valid. B'di'evet. Rav Ada bar Ava Amar lo nisei zeh la'alter, nisei zeh la'achar zman. He says a totally different explanation. He says it's still considered la'alter as long as she didn't get remarried with this get. Once she got remarried with the get, then that's called la'achar zman. And then, like we say, once she's remarried, we can't invalidate her second marriage. It's not. The Mishnah says, "Lo kol imano kun arishon la'abed zchut shel sheni." Rav Lezer gives a reason for his halacha. Right? We don't say that the first guy has the ability to ruin the rights of the second guy. According to Rav Ada bar Ava, who says the distinction is if she married a second man, that's called la'achar zman. So there's a sheni, there's a second person over there. El l'shmuel. Shmuel says the difference in the Mishnah is between while they're in the courtroom, when they got out of the courtroom. My sheni. So the Gemara answer is top of Pei Aleph Min Aleph. Zchus haruya l'sheni. It's a zchus that a second person, if he were to marry her, right, would get. So once they leave the courtroom, that is a zchus. She has a gerush, a get, or the get was done. Gerushin procedure was done. Right? She's not holding the get; she's holding a shover. But nonetheless, we don't invalidate the right of another person to marry her. The Mishnah says, Kosav lagarish as ishto. He wrote a get for his wife, v'nimloch. And then he reconsidered, and he didn't give the get to her. The Shammai omrim psula min akuna. The Shammai says, pasa min akuna. The Shammai says, this is something the Gemara will discuss, I believe, tomorrow on Daf Pei Beis. It's called Reach HaGet. Reach HaGet means it has a scent of a get. Even though the get was not given, a get that's not given is invalid. It's completely invalid. Still, it has the scent. It smells like a gerushin, so therefore people might consider her divorced. So she can't marry a Kohen, right? A Kohen can't marry a Gerusha. So this woman can't be married by a Kohen. They say even so much you give it, the get to her, but you give it with a Tanai. But the Tanai was not Niskayim. Lo pasam and akuna. Even if you gave the get to her, but the Tanai wasn't fulfilled, so the gerushin is batel. There's no din of reach haget, at least in this case, according to Beis Hillel. Where it says Shalach le Rav Yosef Breder Rav Menashe midvil l'Shmuel. They sent the following question to Shmuel: Yolamdenu Rabbeinu Yatza lav kol ish ploni kohen kasav gel isha v'yosheves tachtav mishamashlo mahu. There's a rumor going around, right? What was the rumor? A man who was a kohen, he wrote a get for his wife, and we know that the rumor is he wrote a get for his wife, and she is still living with him, right? Now, if he really gave a get to her, she's asked her to go remarry him because she's a grusha. And they're together. Mahu, what do? Do we separate them? Shalachlei Teitze. He said, we force them to end their marriage, her to leave. However, the matter requires investigation. My mahi. What's the investigation required? The question is, do we squash a rumor or not squash a rumor? Naharda, Shmuel was the posek in Naharda. The Gemara says elsewhere in Naharda, when they had a rumor, they paid attention to the rumor. They didn't squash rumors. Eladi Karul in the Sina Ksiva. So rather, the investigation was, you have to look into it. Do they call giving a get? Do they all reference giving the get as writing the get? Because all the rumor was that he wrote the get, right? So if in that place they also call giving a get, writing a get. The writing a get means also giving a get. So then we assume it was a gerish and she has to leave. So the Gemara question is, fine. They might call, right, giving the get ksiva, but what about just writing a get? They also call that ksiva, so maybe it was just ksiva. Smart says, you're right. The imigla milsa, the karul in the sina ksiva, dilma nasan ka'amri. The Gemara says it's true, it's possible if you just, the word ksiva, right, but if it also means nesina, so therefore it's like a suffix gerishin, and therefore suffix gerishin we have to be makmer, it's a suffix del raisa, it's not to marry a grusha. Teitzei. So the Gemara says, Teitzei, he has to leave. Amar Rashi, Kol Kala, the Basar Nisu, and Lochai Shiamai. Even though in Naharda they didn't squash rumors, but any kol which happened after you got married, we don't worry about it. My Teitzei. So the Gemara says, really what he meant to say wasn't that they have Teitzei Nami, Teitzei Misheni. My Teitzei Nami, Teitzei Misheni. He didn't mean to say that she has to leave the first husband. It means that if she ended up marrying a second husband, she has to leave the second husband. Imkain atamoti lazal banav shel rishon. If she has to leave the second husband, then we think that she was really married to the first one and she committed adultery with the second one. So maybe the children she had with the first one were mamzerim also. Kevan the misheni hu the mafkina le mirishon lo mafkina la. Since the halach is, Shmuel said, basically Teitzei only has to leave the second one, but not leave the first one. So, Asi Lamemar, Samach Lamisa Garsha. We can say the reason that they're removing her from the second one is because really he gave a get, and he gave the get to be, right, he gave a get, right, it's something he might have given a get 10 years ago. And then, right, we don't make him leave that marriage, but if she were to marry somebody else, we make her leave that marriage. So we'll say the reason that she has to leave the second marriage is really not because she had a problem with the first guy, that she committed adultery while she was with the first guy, is that maybe he gave the get a second before he died, in which case she's a grusha and she can't marry the second Kohen. Not because of a chash of mamzerim that she committed adultery, and therefore we're not worried about mamzerim, about people saying that her children are mamzerim. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda bar Eli, Bo Reish Lo Kedoros Harishonim Medoros Ha'achron. The earlier generations are not like the later generations. Doros Harishonim, Beis Shammai, right? Beis Shammai was the original generation. Beis Shammai, even a Reach HaGet, he wrote the get. He retracted, he reconsidered, didn't give the get. Nonetheless, what's the halacha? The halacha is that she can't marry a Kohen. Doros Ha'achron and Rabbi Dosa, who were the later generations? Rabbi Dosa, the Sanya, Shvuya Ocheles B'Truma, Divrei Rabbi Dosa. Rabbi Dosa holds that a woman who's captured by non-Jewish people, she could eat Truma. We don't assume that she was Nevelis, that she had Bia with the non-Jew. The Sanya, Shvuya Ocheles B'Truma, Divrei Rabbi Dosa. Shvuya could eat Truma, the word Rabbi Dosa. Amar Rabbi Dosa, V'chi Ma Asala Arav Yizeb, Nei Shemiach La Ben Dendel. He doesn't assume that they were together. Maybe he just pushed her breasts together. That's what he says. But he wasn't actually together with her. So Beis Shammai was very machmir, and Rabbi Dosa was very mekel. The Amar Rav Baruch Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yehuda bar Eli Bo Re'ei Shlo Kedoros Harishonim Medoros Ha'achronim. A different proof that the earlier generations were unlike the later generations. The earlier Harishonim Machlisin Perosei and Derech Tark Samon K'dei L'chayven V'Maiser. Right, when they had produce in their field, they would bring it into the door of their house, right? Once it we'll see in a second. Once it goes into the doorway of the house, it's chayav and trumas and ma'aser. It's tevel, you can't even snack from it. Doros ha'achronim machlisin perosei and derech gagos and derech karfifos. They would bring it in through their roof, or they bring it in through an enclosure. K'dei l'posham and ma'aser. In order they should still be able to snack from it. It won't become tevel. How do you know this is true? The Amar Rabbi Yana, I cannot tell him this chayav and ma'aser as yirav pnei abayis. It doesn't come tevel, which is chayim in Trumas and Ma'aseh, until it goes through the doorway. Shenemar biarti hakodesh min habayis, right? It says the kodesh was a reference to Trumas and Ma'aseh. It's min habayis, from your house. It has to go into the house. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, the way it normally goes into the house. Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu chatzar kovas. Even if you go into the courtyard, right? Shenemar ba'achlu b'sharecha v'saveya. The pasuk's talking about eating your produce, but you see, eating the normal way to eat is also in your sharecha, in your courtyards, the saveyu. So therefore, it's considered brought into your house once it goes into the courtyard. The Mishnah says, "Amagarish is ishto v'lan imo b'punduki." Another case, he divorces his wife, and then they go to a hotel together. They sleep over at a hotel after the divorce. Beis Shammai says, we don't assume they were together again and they got remarried. L'shem kiddushin, it was bol l'shem kiddushin. You don't need another get. They need another get. Emasai. When is this true? That's only if they were married already and there was gerushin. Omodim and his garshman eristin shenas sheichman get sheni they shein libo gas. But even Beis Hillel says you need to get sheni. That's only if they were previously married. If they got a divorce, they were only engaged and they got a divorce. Right? So they're not familiar with each other. So therefore, even if he divorced her and then they stayed in a hotel, we don't assume they were together to need to get sheni. The Gemara says, "Amar Rav Barachana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Machlokas b'sharua she'nivala." Rabbi Yochanan says the Machlokas between Beis Shammai and Hillel. He's actually talking about a state where they went in the hotel, the inn, the hotel, the motel, wherever it was, and there were actually two Edom that saw the act of bia together. The Beis Shammai Savri, what is it? Beis Shammai doesn't have a problem with that. You don't need another get. Why not? Top of Pe'al from a Beis Savri. Ein adam oseh bilas nos. The reason you don't need it, adam oseh bilas nos. A person, sometimes, it's common for people to mazana, just to have promiscuity, not for the intent to be bol shem kedushin. The normal way of people is not to do bilas nus, be promiscuous. If they were boel, they did it l'shem kedushin. Therefore, you need to get. If we didn't see that they actually were together, if they didn't see it, even we'll see if there's Eidei Yichud, right? It's Eidei Yichud that saw them seclude themselves, but they didn't see them actually be together. So everyone agrees that you don't need to get sheni, even Beis Hillel. Tanan. The Mishnah says, "The modem in his garshim in Eretz she'en l'srichim an get sheni she'en libo gospel." The Mishnah, the end of the Mishnah says that if there was gerushin from the Eresin and then they were secluded together, you don't need a second get according to everyone. But if the case in our Mishnah is talking about, like Rabbi Yochanan says, where we saw they were together, Mali mina Eresin, Mali Nesuin. If you saw them being together, they were together. It doesn't matter whether they were Eresin or Nesuin. Ella, the Gemara concedes, Masisim b'shalora u'ashinil. Our Mishnah is talking about where they did not witness that she was Nevela. That's Rabbi Yochanan, the Amar Kiai Tan. Rabbi Yochanan, who made a statement, he was saying like a different Tanaic opinion. The Sanya Amar Rishim ben Elazar, lo nechligu Beis Shammai Yisrael al shalo ra'u shanivla. She'en esrich v'anaget sheni. Beis Shammai Yisrael did not argue in a case where they didn't see her together. Al ma nechligu. Al sharua shanivla. When they saw they were together, people are promiscuous. He wasn't bol l'shem kedushin. And therefore, he did l'shem kedushin. You need another get. Masnis and our Mishnah, they'll kimna below ra'ua shanivla b'may please. The Gemara says, according to our Mishnah, it's not like Rishon and Elazar, not like the first day of Rabbi Yochanan. Right? What are they arguing about? Beis Shammai Yisrael. So the Gemara says, the ika eidei yichud, v'leika eidei bia. There are two witnesses who saw them seclude themselves in the hotel room, but they have no idea if they were nevelas together. Beis Shammai Savri lo amriyan hein eidei yichud hein eidei bia. We don't assume that the witnesses for seclusion are the witnesses. It's like tantamount to seeing them being together. But Beis Hillel Savri, Beis Hillel holds amriyan hein eidei yichud hein eidei bia. Beis Hillel holds we do assume, just by the fact we saw them seclude themselves, we assume that they were together. Umodim v'nisgar sham min ha'eresin she'en esrichim an get sheni. And they agree that if the divorce happened after just the eresin, you don't know they're get sheni, even according to Beis Hillel. The came on the ein libo gospel lo amriyan hein eidei bia. We don't assume because they saw seclusion. So it was the assumption is they were nevelas. Whereas the Miyam Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan really say like the opinion of Shem Elazar. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Halacha Gestam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan usually accords with the Mishnah, and our Mishnah has to be talking about a case where they didn't see a bia, which is not like Rabbi Yochanan. Gemara says Amoraim Ninu V'Aliba Rabbi Yochanan. There's two Amoraim who had different versions of Rabbi Yochanan. One opinion said that Rabbi Yochanan always held a lux like stam Mishnah. And the other opinion said, no, that our Mishnah is talking about a case where Ra'ua Shenivla, saw that she was Nivelis. The Mishnah says, Concept beget kereach, teitzeng mizel mizeh, v'kol drachma elu ba. Now, get kereach is a little explanation over here. The Gemara in Bava Basra explains that by Kohanim, it was more severe when they give a get, because a Kohen, if he divorces his wife and then he wants to remarry her, he can't remarry her because a Kohen can't marry a Gerusha. So a lot of times people give Gittin to their wives because they get angry and they say they can't tolerate it anymore, so they give a get, and then they regret it. So a regular person, it's not so bad, they can just get remarried, but a Kohen, he can't get remarried. So the Rabbanan instituted something called a get makusher, which is basically, it's a get, but you have to fold every line at least 3 times, and you have to sew it, the get, and you have to sign on every folded line, you have to sign an aid, at least 3 aidim, which is more than a normal get, which needs 2 aidim. The sewing took longer, and finding an extra aid took longer, so the Kohen's anger would be abated, and he wouldn't immediately divorce his wife. He would reconsider before divorcing his wife. So if you have a get makusher and you leave one of those spaces blank, kereach means bald, one of them is blank, it's not the Rabbanan invalidated it, even though it's takana d'Rabbanan, the whole concept of get makusher. You only need 2 eidim midoraisa. However, like we saw before, that if you don't follow the rules that the Chachamim made, it invalidates the whole get. So teitzim mizel kol drachma elu ba. She has to leave this marriage, and also the man she remarried after getting this get, kereach. And all the previous Mishnah we talked about, previous couple Mishnahs ago, we talked about people who didn't write the get the right way. All those penalties apply to them. Get kereach hakol mashlimin alav. Let's say you had one line that was left out, and you want to fill it in. Hakol mashlimin alav divrei benanas. Benanas says you can fill it in with anybody, even we'll see an eved or a gazlan, certainly a karov also. Rekiva omer ein mashlimin alav ela krovim haruyin lahai b'makom acher. The only kula we have is someone who's a karov, if he's a relative. Normally krovim are apostle aidus, but this is a 3rd aid, right? Or a 4th aid, or a 5th aid, right? So you can use a karov. Bananas is more mekel, he allows an eved or a gazlan. We'll talk about the machlokes in the Gemara. Eizu get kereach kol shekshara merubin me'idav. Get kereach is where you have more folds than eidim. Every fold has to have an aid on it. The Gemara says, my time the get kereach. What's the reason get kereach is possible? They're one possible. The gzera mishum kolchem. It's a gzera, right? If you instruct 10 people, you say all of them write a get and give it to my wife, so all of them have to participate. Similarly, a get makusher has a place for a lot of aidim. So oftentimes we'll get confused with a get with kulchem, with a case of kulchem, where you have, let's say, a get makusher could have 8 folds, so it's like kulchem, like 8 people. The two often go together. So if we were mekel by get kereach, so we'd also be mekel in a case of kulchem, and kulchem needs the participation of all the people. Get kereach hakol mashlim alav. Rabbi Kiva eved my time alav. Where it says Rabbi Kiva only allowed a karov. Why not an eved? The asal meimar kasher le'edas. The reason, if we allow an eved, so they're going to say elsewhere he's also kasher le'edas. The Gemara says, but that's not, it can't be. Karov now he also meimar kasher le'edas. But he allows a karov, and people are going to say that. El eved hainu taima. Rather, the Gemara is a different reason. Dilma asul asuke liyuchsan. They might say if he's an aid on a get, so he can let him marry a Jewish woman. But that's not true. Gazlan debar yuchsan hu is kasher. So then, according to Rabbi Akiva, he only says a karo. Even a gazlan should be okay also, because a gazlan's a Jewish person. Alama it's not. Rabbi Akiva omer. However, the Mishnah says emash limin alav ela krovin or in lahayim makom acher. Karovin gazlan no. A gazlan can never be an aid elsewhere. Only a karov. Ella eved hainu time, but also remember shechur shacharei. And eved, the reason is because why are they using him as an aid? They must have freed him. He's a free eved, right? Gazlan nami also remember tshuva often, and they'll say a gazlan, why are they using him as an eved? Because he did tshuva. Now he really didn't do tshuva, and the eved he wasn't freed, so they're going to use him as an aid in a different place, which is a problem. However, karov ma'ikol remember karov kulei amo yadi the karov. Everyone knows he's the relative. He's not changing, not being the relative. So even though they'll know that they only allowed him by a get makusher, but other places he was not allowed. They won't be confused. They won't use him as an aid when he's a karov. Amar of Zera, Amar Rav bar Sheilta, Amar of Nuna Saba, Amar of Ada bar Abba, get kereach shara of Shiva, ve'ed of Shisha. in the following cases, you have a get kereach. Let's say it has 7 folds and 6 edim. Shisha, or 6 folds, ve'edav chamisha, or 5 edim. Chamisha, 5 folds, ve'edav arba, and 4 edim. Arba, 4 folds, ve'edav shlosha. And it's only 3 signatures. Adkam machlokes benanas Rabbi Akiva. Aval kshar shlosha ve'edav shnayim. However, in the case where you have 3 fold and 2 edim, divrei akol in mashlimin alav elakar. Even bananas would agree. The person that can fill in that 3rd signature is a karov. Right? The whole idea of a get makusher, they have at least 3 edim, right? That's 3 edim by a makusher is like 2 edim by a regular get. Mahasam karov lo. Just like a regular get, you can't use a karov for one of the 2 edim. Afhakanami karov lo. Why does anyone allow a karov? Amr lei afal didi kashali. I also had this question. I asked Rav Hamnuna the Rav Barava, and Rav Hamnuna himself asked Rav Barava. The Amr lei, he said, Hanach l'shlosha makusher to lav d'oraisa. He says, you can't compare cases makusher. You can't compare makusher to a regular get. A regular get is the doraisa, 2 edim. The necessity of 3 edim on makusher is only the rabbanan, so therefore a karov could work. Tanyami hachi, we learn in the Brayta, Yezek kereach sharav shiva ve'edav shisha, shisha ve'edav chamisha, chamisha ve'edav arba, arba ve'edav shlosha, akam achos benanas Rabbi Akiva. Right, so the Brayta says exactly the same thing. They only argue in those cases. However, in the case where it's 3 folds and 2 edim, they wouldn't argue a karov. Hishtam alav eved benanas omer havlad kasha. In the above mentioned cases, right, if you have 7 and 6, 5 and right, 6 and 5, 5 and 4, 4 and 3. So then Benanis would say an Eved is who signs it, who fills in the missing signature. The child is kosher. She's allowed to remarry. It's not a mamzer from the second marriage. Right? Kiva Omer Havlad mamzer. He says the puzzle gerushin, and if she has a child with the second person, she's a mamzer. Lakshar of shlosha ve'edav shnayim. Dibra call imash limon alav karov. Like he said, you have to have a karov, even according to Benanis. But Yosef Masni kosher. Yosef had a different version of this. He says that in the case where it's 3 folds and 2 edim, everyone agrees it has to be a kosher eid. Not that it has to be a karo, but it has to be a kosher. And Rekiva also would say it has to be someone kosher. Tanya karo, but this brisa just said karo. Or Papa Tani kosher. Papa says switch the word in the brisa. The brisa instead of saying karo should say kosher. That's the second version over here. That if it's 3 and 2, like we said before, that's similar to a regular get. Like the Gemara said before, it's very similar to a regular get. It's very similar. It's 3 and 2 as opposed to just 2 signatures. So therefore, they're very similar, and you need even the 3rd eid has to be an eid kosher. A karov will be possible. That's the conclusion of tonight's share. Stay tuned for Ian of Ben Sion, where I discuss this concept of Heinen eid yichud, Heinen eid bia, which we possibly like Beis Hillel. Seclusion is tantamount to assuming that they were together, enough to necessitate a second get. Now, by sota, we learn Masechah Sota, right? You need a lot more, right? Even if you have 2 edim on the where he's makana her, where he warns her, and 2 edim on the stira, 2 edim that's all seclusion, she's a suffix sota. At best a suffix, right? She's not. You don't need a get necessarily over there. She has to deal with the process of sota, but she's a sota. She's a suffix. Sota's a suffix. Somebody dies on chumrah and need all the dinim of sota. We don't assume. There's no assumption over there that she was together. Why is that different over here? We'll talk about that Ian of Ben Sion coming up next.